The air hung thick with unspoken accusations, the scent of burnt coffee doing little to mask the metallic tang that seemed to cling to everything after that day. 5 years. 5 years I'd spent clawing my way back from nothing, and all I could think about was the look on their faces when they slammed the door. Now, karma was about to serve itself ice cold. They thought they had broken me. They were so wrong. If you have a sister, a mother, a father, anyone you call family, subscribe now and never take them for granted. My name is Scarlett, and until my 18th birthday, I believed my life was normal. I had parents, a younger sister named Clara, and the kind of suburban existence most people only dream of. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. Clara was the golden child, a gifted musician with a bright future, or so they said. I was reliable, responsible, invisible, apparently. I excelled in school, worked part-time to save for college, and generally tried to make my parents' lives easier. I never asked for much, content to exist in Clara's shadow, basking in the reflected glow of her achievements. But beneath the veneer of normalcy, a quiet storm was brewing, the storm of resentment, carefully cultivated and nurtured by my parents' blatant favoritism. It started subtly, with Clara getting the bigger slice of cake or the nicer clothes. Then it escalated. Clara's music lessons, Clara's summer camps, Clara's everything, all funded by the family savings, while my dreams of a computer science degree were met with shrugs and empty promises. I tried to talk to them about it, to explain how it felt to be constantly overlooked, but my concerns were dismissed as teenage angst, jealousy, or worse, selfishness. I should be supporting my sister, they said. I should be proud of her accomplishments. I should be grateful for what I had. But gratitude dried up when I turned 18. The bomb finally exploded on my birthday. Instead of cake and celebration, I was summoned to the living room for a family meeting. My parents sat on the couch, their faces grim, while Clara stood awkwardly by the window. They announced that they couldn't afford to send both of us to college. Tough choices had to be made, and they'd made theirs. Clara, with her unique talent and promising career, deserved the opportunity to pursue her dreams. My future, apparently, was less important. They handed me a crisp $20 bill, a pathetically small sum that felt like a slap in the face, and told me to find your own way. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, my father said, his voice devoid of emotion. My mother didn't even look at me. Clara mumbled an insincere apology, her eyes darting nervously between her parents and me. I remember the precise shade of the wallpaper, the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, and the way the setting sun cast long, ominous shadows across the room. Everything felt surreal, like a twisted nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply nodded, took the $20, and walked out the door, leaving behind everything I had ever known. Homeless, heartbroken, and utterly alone. That $20 bill burned a hole in my pocket for years to come, a constant reminder of their betrayal. It became a symbol of my pain, the symbol of my parents' decision. I vanished without a trace. No calls, no letters, no social media updates. They had made their choice, and I was determined to make mine. The person I trusted most was one of them. It wasn't just my parents. Clara knew what they were planning. She had heard their conversations, witnessed their blatant favoritism, and never once spoke up. She stood by and watched as they tossed me aside, prioritizing her future over mine. That realization cut deeper than any financial hardship. It wasn't just about the money. It was about the complete disregard for my well-being, the casual cruelty with which they dismissed my dreams. In that moment, something inside me hardened. The naive, trusting girl I once was vanished, replaced by a woman forged in the fires of betrayal, fueled by a burning desire to prove them wrong. I vowed to make them regret their decision, not through petty revenge or spiteful acts, but by achieving the kind of success they never thought possible. My silence was not acceptance. It was strategy. It was the calm before the storm. And the storm was coming. I would build my empire, and they would witness my triumph. That was my promise, and I intended to keep it. That $20 didn't last long. The first few nights were spent huddled in bus shelters, the cold seeping into my bones despite the layers of clothing I wore. Sleep was a luxury I couldn't afford, haunted by nightmares of my parents' faces and the echoing sound of that door slamming shut. Hunger gnawed at my stomach, a constant reminder of my precarious situation. I tried to find work, but every application was met with the same dismissive response. No experience. Need references. Not hiring. The city, once a beacon of opportunity, now felt like a concrete jungle, indifferent to my struggles. I swallowed my pride and called Clara, hoping for a lifeline, a temporary place to stay until I could get back on my feet. She answered, her voice hesitant, and after a stilted conversation filled with awkward pauses, she offered a weak apology and said her parents wouldn't allow it. They didn't want me disrupting her studies, she explained. The door slammed shut again, this time with the force of her rejection. My vision blurred. The glass in my hand shattered. I remember the crimson droplets mixing with the lukewarm coffee I had been nursing for hours. I spent weeks drifting from one temporary shelter to another, each one more depressing than the last. The air was thick with desperation, the faces etched with stories of loss and regret.
I saw my future reflected in their eyes, a bleak and terrifying vision of what I could become if I didn't find a way out. One night, a woman at a shelter, her face lined with hard living, saw me studying a discarded textbook. She told me about a community college that offered free tuition to low-income students. It wasn't my dream school, but it was a chance, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. I enrolled immediately, determined to make the most of the opportunity. Balancing classes with multiple part-time jobs was exhausting. I worked as a waitress, a cashier, a cleaner, anything to make ends meet. Sleep became even more elusive. My days a relentless cycle of work, study, and the constant struggle to survive. I pushed myself to the brink, fueled by a mixture of desperation and defiance. I refused to let my parents' betrayal define me. I excelled in my classes, driven by a burning desire to prove them wrong. The computer science degree I had once dreamed of seemed unattainable, but I discovered a passion for business, a field where I could use my intelligence and drive to create my own opportunities. I started small, selling handmade jewelry at local markets, using the skills I had learned from my grandmother. The long hours were grueling, but the satisfaction of earning my own money, of building something from nothing, was incredibly empowering. I poured every spare moment into my studies and my fledgling business, sacrificing sleep, social life, and any semblance of normalcy. My health suffered. I lost weight. Dark circles formed under my eyes. But I refused to slow down. The weight of injustice was a heavy burden, but it also fueled my determination. I had to succeed, not just for myself, but to show my parents that they had made a mistake, that they had underestimated me. I heard whispers through the grapevine. Clara was thriving, her musical career taking off. My parents were proud, basking in her reflected glory. They never asked about me, never wondered how I was doing. I was a ghost, erased from their lives. But I was watching them. I was counting the days, and I was planning my revenge. It wouldn't be the kind of revenge they expected. It wouldn't involve violence or confrontation. It would be the quiet, calculated revenge of success. The kind of success that would make them question everything they thought they knew. The kind of success that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Their biggest weakness? They thought they were untouchable. They believed their actions had no consequences, that they could discard me without repercussions. They underestimated my resilience, my determination, and my capacity for both forgiveness and calculated retribution. They would soon learn the true cost of their betrayal. The weight of exhaustion became unbearable. One sweltering summer night, after pulling a double shift at the diner and spending hours hunched over textbooks in the library, I collapsed, not just emotionally, but physically. I woke up in a hospital bed, the sterile white walls closing in around me. The doctor, his face etched with concern, informed me that I had suffered from severe malnutrition and exhaustion. My body had simply shut down. He warned me that if I continued at this pace, I wouldn't last much longer. His words hit me hard. I was so focused on proving my parents wrong that I had forgotten to take care of myself. I was running on fumes,
sacrificing my health and well-being for a future that seemed increasingly distant. Lying in that hospital bed, hooked up to IV drips and surrounded by the beeping of machines, I felt a profound sense of despair. Was it worth it? Was all this struggle and sacrifice leading anywhere? Or was I simply chasing a ghost, doomed to repeat the mistakes of my past? Doubt gnawed at me, threatening to consume me whole. I closed my eyes, tears streaming down my face, and allowed myself to feel the full weight of my pain. The years of neglect, the betrayal, the constant struggle for survival, it all came crashing down on me in that moment. I was broken, defeated, and utterly alone. In the sterile silence of the hospital room, I felt something shift within me. It wasn't a dramatic epiphany or a sudden surge of strength. It was a quiet, simmering resolve. I realized that I couldn't continue down this path of self-destruction. I needed to change, to heal, to find a new way forward. My revenge wouldn't be worth anything if I wasn't alive to see it. The first step was accepting that I couldn't do it all alone. I swallowed my pride and reached out to the community college counselor, explaining my situation. She was kind and understanding, offering me resources and support that I never knew existed. She helped me apply for food stamps, find affordable housing, and connect with a support group for students struggling with similar challenges. It wasn't easy. Asking for help felt like admitting defeat, but I knew it was necessary. I started attending therapy sessions, unpacking the years of trauma and resentment that had been festering inside me. It was painful, confronting the deep-seated wounds that I had tried so hard to ignore, but it was also incredibly liberating. I learned to forgive myself for the things I couldn't control and to focus on the things I could. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to rebuild my life. I scaled back my work hours, prioritizing my health and well-being. I started eating regular meals, exercising, and getting enough sleep. I reconnected with old friends, people who had offered me support in the past but whom I had pushed away in my single-minded pursuit of success. Their friendship was a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this world. As I healed, my perspective began to shift.
I realized that my parents' betrayal, while deeply painful, didn't have to define me. I could choose to let it consume me, or I could use it as fuel to create a better future for myself. The burning desire for revenge didn't disappear entirely, but it transformed. It was no longer about hurting my parents. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of anything. I started researching my parents and Clara. Social media became my window into their world, a carefully curated highlight reel of success and happiness. Clara's music career was flourishing. She was touring the world, receiving accolades, and basking in the glow of her newfound fame. My parents, of course, were beaming with pride, attending her concerts and posting glowing updates on social media. They seemed oblivious to my existence, completely unaware of the storm that was brewing beneath the surface. But I was watching them, learning their habits, studying their weaknesses. Clara's weakness was her ego. She craved attention, validation, and the constant adoration of her fans. My parents' weakness was their pride. They were so desperate to appear successful and perfect that they would do anything to maintain that image. I began to formulate a plan, a carefully orchestrated strategy that would expose their hypocrisy and reveal the truth behind their carefully constructed facade. It wouldn't be quick and it wouldn't be easy, but it would be devastating. I started documenting everything, collecting evidence of their neglect, their favoritism, and their blatant disregard for my well-being. I kept meticulous records of their financial transactions, their social media posts, and their public statements. I knew that to take them down, I needed irrefutable proof, something that would shatter their carefully crafted image and expose them for who they truly were. The exact day they tried to end me, I exposed the truth. I would use their own arrogance against them. They had always underestimated me, dismissing me as the reliable and responsible daughter who would never amount to anything. They believed they were untouchable, immune to the consequences of their actions. They were wrong. I was no longer the naive, trusting girl they had cast aside. I was a woman with a plan, a woman fueled by a burning desire to reclaim her life and expose the truth. My silence had been their shield. Now, my actions would be their undoing. The world was about to see the real Scarlett, the one they tried to bury, the one who refused to be silenced. and they would regret the day they ever underestimated her.
I smiled. I played their game, attending Clara's concerts when she performed in town, always making sure to be seen. I posted gushing congratulations on her social media, the picture of a supportive sister. Inside, I was meticulously gathering information. Every interview she gave, every public appearance, every carelessly worded tweet became a piece of the puzzle. I discovered a pattern. Clara had a habit of exaggerating her struggles, painting a picture of relentless hardship to garner sympathy and boost her image as a self-made star. She spoke of overcoming unimaginable obstacles to achieve her dreams, conveniently omitting the lavish financial support she had received from our parents. I began archiving these instances, cross-referencing them with financial records and other evidence that told a very different story. The more I dug, the more inconsistencies I found. It was like watching a house of cards slowly begin to wobble. One wrong move, and the whole thing would collapse. I installed hidden cameras in my parents' home, disguised as everyday objects. I told them I wanted to document their lives for posterity, to capture their memories for future generations. They ate it up, flattered by the attention and oblivious to my true motives. The cameras captured everything: their conversations, their interactions with Clara, their casual dismissals of my existence. I even managed to record a phone call between my parents and Clara's manager, in which they discussed ways to manage her public image and downplay her privileged upbringing. It was gold. The legal ramifications were a minefield. I consulted with a lawyer, explaining my situation and outlining my plan. He cautioned me about the potential risks, the possibility of facing legal action for invasion of privacy and defamation. But he also acknowledged that I had a strong case, particularly if I could prove that my parents and Clara had acted maliciously and with intent to harm me. He advised me to proceed with caution, to ensure that every step I took was legally sound and ethically justifiable. I spent months researching the laws in my state, familiarizing myself with the nuances of privacy rights, defamation, and the admissibility of evidence. I learned about forensic accounting, how to trace financial transactions and uncover hidden assets. I even took a course in digital forensics, learning how to recover deleted data and analyze digital evidence. It was a crash course in espionage, but I was determined to be prepared for anything. One close call almost derailed my entire operation. My mother unexpectedly decided to redecorate the living room, nearly discovering one of the hidden cameras. I managed to distract her, feigning interest in her design plans and subtly redirecting her attention away from the suspicious object. It was a heart-stopping moment, a reminder of the risks I was taking. I knew I had to be more careful, to anticipate their movements and stay one step ahead.
I created a website, a platform where I could anonymously publish my findings. It was designed to look like a fan site dedicated to Clara, filled with glowing praise and adoring messages. But hidden beneath the surface was a link to a private section, accessible only with a password. In that section, I would reveal the truth. I meticulously crafted a series of articles, each one exposing a different aspect of their deception. I presented the evidence in a clear and compelling manner, using screenshots, audio recordings, and financial documents to support my claims. I wrote about my parents' blatant favoritism, their decision to cut me off financially, and their unwavering support for Clara's career. I detailed Clara's exaggerations and fabrications, her attempts to portray herself as a struggling artist despite her privileged upbringing. And I included personal stories, anecdotes that illustrated their cruelty and indifference. The final piece was a video montage, a compilation of clips from the hidden cameras, showcasing their true personalities and their disdain for me. I titled it The Price of Fame, the untold story of Clara's rise to stardom. The anticipation was almost unbearable. I had spent years planning this moment, sacrificing everything to bring them to justice. I knew that the release of this information would have devastating consequences for their reputations and their careers, but I also knew that it was the right thing to do. They had caused me immeasurable pain, and they needed to be held accountable for their actions. I set a date for the launch, a day that coincided with one of Clara's major concerts. I wanted to maximize the impact, to ensure that as many people as possible would see the truth. I created a social media campaign, using anonymous accounts to generate buzz and build anticipation.
I sent cryptic messages to journalists and bloggers, hinting at a major expose that would shake the entertainment world. The goal was to create a viral sensation, to make sure that the story would spread like wildfire across the internet. On the day of the concert, I uploaded the website and activated the hidden section. I sent out the password to a select group of journalists and bloggers, urging them to share the information with their audiences. Then I waited. The first few hours were agonizingly slow. I refreshed the website every few minutes, watching the traffic counter tick upward. Gradually, the story began to gain traction. People started sharing the articles on social media, commenting on the revelations, and expressing their outrage. The hashtag #ClaraExposed began to trend, climbing higher and higher on the list. Then, the mainstream media picked up the story. News outlets and television stations began reporting on the controversy, interviewing experts and airing excerpts from the video montage. The dam had broken. The truth was out, and there was no turning back.
The avalanche had begun. My phone exploded with notifications. News alerts, social media mentions, and angry messages from unknown numbers flooded my screen. Clara's carefully constructed image was crumbling before my eyes. The concert was in chaos. People were walking out, booing, and demanding refunds. Video clips from my website were being played on the big screens, interspersed with Clara's performance. Her voice cracked as she tried to sing, her face pale and drawn under the harsh lights. My parents were nowhere to be seen. They had likely retreated to their luxury suite, desperately trying to contain the damage. But it was too late. The truth was out, and it was spreading like wildfire. I watched it all unfold from the safety of my apartment, a grim satisfaction washing over me. The years of planning, the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, it had all been worth it. They had tried to bury me, to erase me from their lives, but I had risen from the ashes, stronger and more determined than ever. Their biggest weakness was their arrogance, their belief that they were untouchable. They had underestimated me, and now they were paying the price. I received a call from Clara's manager, his voice frantic and pleading. He begged me to take down the website, promising to make amends, to offer me a settlement, anything to stop the bleeding. I laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "It's too late," I said. "The truth is out. You can't put the genie back in the bottle." He launched into a tirade of insults and threats, accusing me of being a jealous, vindictive bee. I hung up on him, blocking his number. The calls kept coming, from lawyers, publicists, and concerned family members. I ignored them all. I had said everything I needed to say. The world could now decide for themselves. The website traffic was through the roof, crashing the server multiple times. I had to upgrade to a more robust hosting plan to handle the load. The comment section was a battleground, with people arguing and debating the validity of my claims. Some defended Clara, accusing me of being a liar and a manipulator, but the majority were on my side, expressing their support and admiration for my courage. Then the unthinkable happened. My parents called. Their voices were trembling, filled with a mixture of anger and desperation. They demanded to know why I had done this. How could they betray them in such a way? I remained calm, my voice steady and controlled. "You betrayed me first," I said. "You cast me aside. You favored Clara. You treated me like I was nothing. I'm simply giving you a taste of your own medicine." They tried to deny it, to minimize their actions, to paint themselves as the victims. But I wasn't buying it. I had the evidence, the proof, the irrefutable truth. "It's over," I said. "Your lies are exposed. Your secrets are revealed, and there's nothing you can do to stop it." My mother started to cry, begging me to reconsider, to think about the family. My father was silent, his rage palpable through the phone line. I hung up, severing the last thread of connection between us. I knew that this was the end of our relationship, that we could never go back to the way things were. But I also knew that it was necessary. I needed to break free from their toxic influence, to create a new life for myself, a life free from their lies and their manipulations. They would never understand, but that was okay. I didn't need their approval. I only needed my own. The trap was set. The world was watching, and they were about to walk right into it. I released one final piece of evidence, a video recording of my parents signing a contract with Clara's record label, guaranteeing her financial support for the next 5 years. The contract stipulated that I would receive nothing, that all of their assets would be used to further Clara's career. It was the smoking gun, the final nail in the coffin. The media went wild. The public outcry was deafening. Clara's concerts were canceled, her endorsements were dropped, and her reputation was in tatters.
My parents were facing lawsuits, investigations, and the scorn of the entire world. They had lost everything: their money, their status, and their daughter's career, all because they underestimated me. But the fallout wasn't limited to Clara and my parents. As the story continued to unfold, other secrets began to surface. Whispers of financial impropriety, shady business deals, and even darker secrets began to circulate. It turned out that my parents' success was built on a foundation of lies and deceit. They had cheated investors, exploited employees, and engaged in illegal activities to maintain their lavish lifestyle. The authorities were now involved, launching investigations into their business dealings. It was a complete and utter disaster, and I was just getting started. I had saved the best for last, a final revelation that would shatter their world beyond repair. A secret that they had kept hidden for years, a secret that would change everything. I leaned back in my chair, a smile playing on my lips. The game was far from over, and I was about to deliver the final blow. The secret? Clara wasn't just spoiled. She wasn't even their biological daughter. Years ago, my parents, desperate for a child, had gone through a fertility clinic. There had been a mix-up, a terrible mistake that they covered up, choosing to raise Clara as their own, never telling a soul. I found the original clinic records, buried deep in my father's files, proof that shattered everything they believed about themselves. It wasn't about the money. It was about a lifetime of lies built upon a foundation of stolen identity. I released those records. The internet exploded. Clara's entire identity was a fabrication. Her fame, her talent, her very being, all propped up by a decades-long deception.
The revelation stripped her bare, exposing the emptiness beneath the carefully constructed facade. The fallout was biblical. Clara vanished from the public eye, retreating into a world of silence and shame. Her career was over. Every song, every performance, every interview was tainted by the lie. My parents, already reeling from the financial investigations, were now facing a moral reckoning. The press hounded them, their faces plastered across every tabloid. Their friends deserted them. The community that had once embraced them now shunned them like pariahs. I watched it all, a strange sense of detachment washing over me. It was as if I were watching a movie, a tragic drama playing out on a distant screen. I saw my mother's face in a fleeting news clip, gaunt and ravaged. I saw my father, his shoulders slumped, his eyes filled with a hollow despair. And I felt nothing. There was no joy, no triumph, no sense of vindication, only a profound emptiness. The police investigation came next. What started as a case of online revenge morphed into a full-blown criminal inquiry. My parents' empire began to crumble. Their assets were frozen, their reputation destroyed. They'd made enemies over the years, people they cheated and manipulated. Those people were now lining up to testify against them. The legal battles stretched on for months, each day bringing new revelations of corruption and deceit. My parents fought tooth and nail, but the evidence was overwhelming. They were eventually convicted on multiple charges. I didn't attend the trial. I didn't need to see their downfall firsthand. I already knew the outcome. One evening, I received a letter from my mother. It was handwritten, the ink smudged and faded. She wrote of her regret, her shame, her profound sorrow for the way she had treated me. She admitted that she had been blinded by her desire to protect Clara, that she had allowed her love for one daughter to overshadow her love for the other. She asked for my forgiveness, knowing that she didn't deserve it. I read the letter, my hands trembling. A single tear rolled down my cheek. I didn't forgive her. Not then, not ever. But I understood. I understood the complexities of human nature, the capacity for both great love and great cruelty. I understood that my parents were not monsters, but flawed human beings who had made terrible choices. And I understood that their choices had consequences, consequences that had irrevocably altered all of our lives. They lost everything. I just smiled. The world finally knew the truth. My truth. It wasn't a happy ending. There were no winners in the story, only survivors. I was a survivor. I had emerged from the ashes, scarred, but not broken. I had reclaimed my life, my identity,
my voice. I had silenced those who had tried to silence me. I had exposed the darkness and brought it into the light. It was over. I was free.
Revenge isn't sweet. It's necessary. It's a way of reclaiming what was stolen, of righting a wrong, of finding justice in a world that often feels unjust. It's not about inflicting pain. It's about finding peace. And in the end, that's all that truly matters. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.